Is having a financial advisor just for the super rich? In today's episode of Friends Talk Financial Planning, we'll discuss how regular people can benefit from having a financial advisor, how to think about when you might want to hire a financial advisor. Hi, I'm John Shear, and I run a fee-only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin.
And I'm Bridget Sullivan-Ramel, and I've got a family financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois. Before we start talking about hiring a financial planner or a financial advisor, please subscribe. It helps us with our YouTube statistics. All right, John, so let's get into this topic about hiring a financial advisor. I think there's a lot of intimidation about it, and the industry there's a lot of variety in the industry, and I don't know if everybody's aware of it. And so that's one of the reasons why we're doing this episode. So, John, let's talk about the first reason you might be interested in hiring somebody.
Yeah, no, I love this topic, right? I talk with people like, oh, geez, you got to be, I'm not rich. I can't do those sort of things. And frankly, when I got into the business a long time ago, it was sort of like, listen, you kind of had to be rich or have a certain amount of money. I remember thinking, geez, I don't know, it's got that much dough. Can I really help folks? And certainly, and maybe I was right or wrong with that thought process back in 2001, but for sure today, you don't need to be rich. And so there's some example. And one of the things that I think about is there's an area of our world, and Bridget, as you know, when you say financial planner or financial advisor, it can mean so many different things, right? We kind of have this one picture in our head, but there's so many different things. I thought it might be useful to talk about what some of those things are. And one of them that comes to mind for me is we call it a financial coach, where somebody really helps you out on a day-to-day basis, doing things like figuring out your budget and how to pay off debt and more some of the strategic nuts and bolts sort of things, where that's not exactly what I do in my practice. I don't think it is what you do in yours specifically. We do some of that, right? But there are some folks where you go, listen, maybe I'm just starting off and need some help just getting in that right direction. Or
Right.
maybe I've been working for a while and, golly, I'm making good money and I just can't seem to get traction. Maybe having somebody for a period of time anyway that helps you monthly, quarterly, weekly for that matter, of staying on track with things. There's a place for that. And you don't have to have all kinds of money in order for that to be really useful.
Right. And, so the things that you can get help with is like, let me set this up so I can track my spending. I know what I'm spending. I've got a budget, and I'm spending the money on the stuff that I want to be spending it on, not on stuff that I really don't care about. So, and make sure that I'm saving enough. So a lot of times this can be people that are just starting out, or if they just go through a big transition in their life. So it could be somebody who just got married or just got divorced, or, we have a lot of transitions in our life. Or even if, say, I'm making more money, like, all right, I'm making more and I've done this before, and all of a sudden I know it just kind of seems to evaporate and I don't know where it's going, So those kinds of questions, I think a financial coach can help you with, just the nuts and bolts of the basic bookkeeping of life. I think
Right.
that financial coaches, that's what you look for them to help you with.
And you brought up changes in life, which I love that topic on things. And one of them you mentioned was getting married. And I think that leads to another thing as far as, under the realm of financial advising is sort of financial therapy type of thing. And often cases when a person gets married or, two people get married, I guess one person can't really get married, right? Um, when you get married, now I've got my way of thinking about money in the world, and you've got your way of thinking. Now we got to put them together in some fashion, right? And that's where it's not necessarily about exactly nuts and bolts and how do we save and spend. It can be some of that, but more, how do we think about it? How do we work together to help figure out what's important to us, not just me? And, right? Money is one of the biggest factors in marital unhappiness and divorces and things like that. And there's a reason for it, because it's emotional. It doesn't have anything to do with investment return and taxes or how much we save and different things, but it has to do with this emotional side where therapy can really help folks. I know that every now and again, I'll have some people come into my office and they'll say, geez, are you a marriage counselor? Because you're going to, we got this issue we're helping you figure out, sort of thing, right? I mean, that seems like one of the other places where you don't have to be a gazillionaire for that to be really beneficial.
Right, yeah. And so I have, I'm sure both of us have people that come into our clients and that we help over the hump. But this is generally you do financial like counseling or financial therapy. If there's a bigger hump to get over. So you really have different styles than your spouse. And a lot of times I see in my life that people tend to either act exactly like their parents did with money or exactly the opposite. And so like
Yeah.
negotiate. And so then as a grown up, you're like, okay, these are my two options. Well, there's must be a third option. I don't have to be, my parents were really frugal. I don't have to be totally frugal or just a total spender, like, so striking the right balance. And again, a lot of times I see you can kind of go along and maybe in denial with yourself. But once you get married and maybe have kids, then it can become bigger issues.
Yeah, I love that you said right. You said, hey, if it's a bigger hump to get over, right? You need some specialized help, and I think it's important. One of the things that I think a lot of people think about when they think financial planner is probably the work that you and I do on a more core basis. It's helping with tax planning on things, helping with investment planning, some of those sort of things. And as I think about the things we've talked about, right, doing some financial coaching and some financial therapy, I mean, I do some of that. I think you do too, right? I do some, helping to coach, like how do you get some of the nuts and bolts. It's not the focus of what we do, but yeah, of course we do some of that. And my specialty is not in behavioral finance and helping people with the therapy side. Do we help people negotiate and work things out? Yep. But then when it gets to a certain level, you go, hey, wait a minute, I really need that specialty for somebody. And I kind of relate it to what I'll some people times people ask, well, hey, I think I need some help, friends oftentimes about things, and it really falls into that financial coaching side or maybe financial therapy. And I sort of relate it to being in the construction world, right? I've got a friend of mine, and he's runs one of the owners of a big construction company, and they build like hospitals and office complexes and those sorts of things. And if I went to him and, hey, you're in the builder, right? Could you build a house for me? I'm like, well, yeah, it's probably a better deal to have him build a house for me than my dentist, right? Sort of thing. But that's just not what they do when those companies with the big cranes and the high-rise buildings, right? And similarly, a house builder, you go, hey, can you build an office building? Well, I mean, yeah, again, probably better than my accountant can, but that's just not the right fit for things. And so that's one of the things that it seems really, it's kind of silly when you say that out. Because construction, the guys with the big cranes aren't building, single family houses, generally speaking. And it's really evident in our world, it's a little less because of some of the language issues and some of the, the jargon sort of things where, hey, you're a financial advisor or a financial planner, and it can mean so many different things that it just, I think you need to be specific about it a little bit.
Right, right, right. And that, but then let's talk about when it does make sense to hire a financial planner or a more traditional financial advisor. And the big thing I see again is when you're going through transitions in life often, and there's what I think of as a ceiling of complexity. So it's just kind of too complicated for you to be able to figure out on your own. So in my personal business, we see this with people that are like 5 years before retirement. They've been handling it pretty decently themselves. And then they get to 5 years of retirement, they're like, this seems like it's just kind of too much. There's too many
Yep.
factors. Another thing that I see often is people that get paid with equity compensation. So they get shares of stock, either stock options or
Yep.
restricted stock units. And so those, again, there's this whole ethos in these companies like, oh, there's people that seem to say they know what they're doing with things, but most people really don't. And so
Yeah.
if they're honest with themselves, they're like, I don't know, I want to take advantage of this, but I have no idea what I'm doing with this. And so again, that's a ceiling of complexity that we help people out with all the time.
No, I love that idea. And I'll tell you, I'll even take a step back from it that and you said we get a lot of those folks too. Yeah, I've been doing okay. Now it's getting more complex. I've got stock options. Golly, got this retirement thing coming in. But even on a lower scale than that, for some folks, just this whole idea of budgeting and tracking and saving for retirement, right? If it's not natural for you, it might be at the very basic level where you go, okay, wait a minute, I've hit my ceiling of complexity already. I kind of relate it, doing things around the house, right? There's some of us that you know what, if it's anything more than jiggling the handle on the toilet, I'm out, right? I just and there's other people, right? I know your husband's great at fixing things. Like, listen, replacing a toilet, great, that takes I can do that, no problem. You go, wait a minute, there's a couple different levels here of things, right? And it's not wrong to go, you know what, I need some coaching right from the get-go, right? I'm already at my ceiling of complexity. That's totally cool, and you can get help doing that, right?
I can learn, but I don't really want to. I want to spend my time doing something else, you know?
And that's the other thing too, is some people I feel like anyway really can't, like, I just don't. But then just what you said, right? Your husband can put a toilet in, but it's probably going to take him all day compared to having a pro do it in an hour, right? And then that's the other thing, as I think about who can benefit from financial advice, is what if you can do it but you don't like to,
Right.
right? For me personally, I like cutting the grass at my house. I can hire somebody to do it, but I kind of enjoy it. I don't like replacing the toilet, or those, like, I could do it, but that would be a bummer. So, like, listen, even though I can do it, man, maybe I want somebody to come in. I can manage my finances and get there, but you know what? That really drains my energy. I'd rather pay somebody else to do it for me, right? That's where, and again, you don't have to be super rich for that to be really valuable for you.
Yeah, and then the last thing I think is sort of what are the stakes? And so when we look at, say, retirement, you get, again, with this 5 years before retirement, there's decisions that you're probably going to make that are high stakes. They'll affect the rest of your life. And same with when you're younger, if you're getting paid with compensation, you say, oh, wow, I'm getting a lot of Google stock. What do I do?
Right.
That it could, like, wow, that could affect the rest of my life. And so that's a higher stakes decision that might say, okay, let me get some help with this, versus like, oh yeah, I'm procrastinating on this or that. But that's like implicitly that you'll still probably be okay,
Right.
but not making these major decisions that could impact your future.
Yeah, I love that, right? You're 35, and how much you save for retirement, you got some runway to figure that out, make changes in it, right? You're getting into retirement, and now you've got to make your money last the rest of your life, and you're not going to earn any more money the rest of your life. A little bit higher stakes, right? Going back to the house analogy, hey, I can maybe, fix a faucet, but rewiring my whole house, the chance of me doing something wrong and starting it, burning it down, or electrocuting myself, right? A little higher stakes. Maybe I want to hire somebody else to do that stuff, right?
I think that's a great place to wrap it up, John. I'm Bridget Sullivan Ramel. I've got a fee only financial planning practice in Chicago, Illinois.
And I'm John Shear. I've got a fee only financial planning practice in Middleton, Wisconsin. Both Bridget and I are taking on new clients. We'd love to talk to you if what we say is appealing. And we're also both members of the Alliance of Comprehensive Planners, which is a group of fee only planners across the country. So if you wanted to find somebody who thinks like us in your area, check out acplanners.org.
And please subscribe.